That's what we open with. We open with this version of him that is so far removed from the TV show that it just seems impossible. And I saw that as a challenge that I couldn't get over, and I felt
Mm.
weird and I felt vulnerable and I didn't like it. And over time, I just, ate that. It's like that's the trust in my creative team that they have my back, that they know what's best for the play and the show and what's best for me, and learning with them and writing them. So yeah, it's all an exercise in trust and building this character and attaching things to him, like his foundation, like the movement and making it make sense with languages because it's sci-fi and fantasy and trying to make it seem real to me because that's the only way I could do it, is if it was truth.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Brianna Rodriguez. I'm the editor in chief here at Backstage, and I'm joined here by the wonderful Louis McCartney, star of Stranger Things First Shadow. He stars as Henry Creel. This is the Broadway prequel to that Netflix smash hit Stranger Things. Louis, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I want to talk about the physicality. I mean, I'm sure it's the thing that most people bring up, but you bring such an incredible physicality to this role. There's so much tension that you carry throughout your body throughout the show. And that obviously combined with the usual demand of an 8 show week. How do you take care of yourself physically?
Yeah, it's honestly, it's weird to say, but it's slightly mind and body, because you gotta be so smart about it. In London, I messed up so many times, and I would tear my neck out. And there's stuff with the power hand, and your forearm gets really tense, and then you don't feel as creatively powerful when you can't do what you want to do, which is it's a shame, and you really only have yourself to blame. So you got to be so smart, and there's a lot of upkeep. There's PT and vocal massages. One thing I realized is that with like the fits and stuff, and every I like to isolate the movement. And, it stems from somewhere like it's power generating, and it has to look real. That was one of our main things, and there has to be a language to it. It can't just be like and powers and that's interesting. It has to mean something to the viewer visually, rather emotionally or violence or whatever. And I realized that I like it all to stem from here. Firstly, his hand is the power source, lore wise, but also if I get tense here, it tenses up here and I can't speak, and it's like a double thing where I'm, double screwed. So it's really important for me to keep an eye on it, and I'm not the best, because you just want to soldier on and get on with it, but you know, there's a there's a lot of care, and you got to be careful, and you have to be smart and almost gentle
Mhm.
sometimes. Um, yeah,
So you mentioned, I mean, there's like PT, and you said there's vocal massages as well.
they get in all along the tiny muscles, and then these ones that make up the base of your tongue,
Mhm.
because it's a lot of like screaming, and like facially, when you do that, you're gonna tense up your masseter muscles, and your glands might swell. Um, and all of that affects your voice box and your general health, and you're probably more susceptible to your colds, and your immune system fails. So it's like creatively and structurally speaking, it's very needed, but also just for your human health. I didn't realize it's very important because I don't want to do the show and not be able to go out,
Right.
Um, I don't want to be, hindered, and that was one of the things is I wanted to take control and make it mine, and then the main thing I've realized is giving that time, having the power to say, no, I can't go out. I gotta take
Great.
care and,
Right.
sort of become an athlete, have a bit of that mentality because it's a performance, especially with the physicality and stuff. It's like, I gotta be fit. And if I'm not fit, then I don't feel good and I can't do the show to the best of my ability. And that sucks for
Right.
me. It's like, I just
Right.
want people to have a good time and believe it, you know?
Yeah.
So the vocal massages are really cool.
I want to talk a little bit about your process in general for developing the physicality of any character. Where do you start? Where do you begin when it comes to putting a character in your body?
Brilliant question. Very first person to ask me that. I believe that when you're creating a language, when you kind of create a character, when you try to start anything, you have your multiple objectives and your super objective maybe, but then at the base of all that, there has to be something. There is something inside Louis that makes up my daily life, and people could attribute me if they had to one defining adjective. And for the powers, that meant that it all had to stem from, fear and, well, the fact that it isn't his. So it had to be violent and it had to be out of control. And it was such a process in giving it time because when I was auditioning and they started, like, Stephen was like, playing with the idea of giving me like a 5 kilogram weight that I would hold the whole time I was rehearsing the scenes, so that there would be an infliction, where you could tell that something was wrong, so that as to not make it look gimmicky with the language, what I was talking about, and to make it perceptible and real. And we threw
Right.
that in the bin. We didn't do that, thank God, because I don't think that really would
Well,
have
the good
been too good. I would have been like, I would have walked around like that for the rest of my life. Kind of method. Yeah, so we just had tons of talks and like making it better, and you grow muscles and you trust that it will come. You gotta trust, because it's never always there. Even to this day, yesterday I was going into fight call and I have an idea for something that is cooler, and I just try to make it look cool and exciting, you know. Yeah, it's weird. It does just I would love to talk about it more intellectually, but it's something that comes from feeling.
Mhm.
And it's like making a choice that might be subconscious in a scene, and you lose yourself like in the magic. I can also lose myself in the movement, which is really nice because then it detaches it from being, a practical thing. It's like, if I want to, really hurt somebody, it's like that comes out of sudden intuition and sudden feeling. It's like, unless you're a psychopath, you're not, well, he is, but you're not going to really think about hurting somebody. That's why I think it's good sometimes when it just comes and
Right,
it's sudden, because then it's shocking. And that's the duplicitous nature to him, is
right,
his dichotomy, his self thing. So,
right.
yeah.
I was wondering if are there any acting techniques that you adhere to? I mean, you talked a little bit about it being a lot coming from feeling. So is there any sort of teaching or, you know, technique that you lean on to tap into that feeling, or is it really all
Yeah. So when I was training, um, in Bow Street in Dublin, they taught us just really how to live. And there was a few techniques like, using your eyes as the camera and, absorbing light and absorbing everything. And it was really just about doing the work and preparing yourself for success. It's something called readiness potential, which I hope sits inside of me, which was kind of nice because coming to Broadway, I didn't have to go back to the script as much and I didn't have to work on the meaning of certain things. And again, make it heady and make it, very practical because everybody, when you act, you want it to come from deep within, like I'm just talking to you now, I have no idea what I'm going to say next. Like if this was a scene, this would be an amazing scene. And that's kind of where you want to get to. And the way it works is that what I did was I worked a lot on the script and I would analyze each individual line and I would try to think outside the box, which is, you think in the third person, describe the scene in the first person. What other details can you, analyze within the scene, and you make it, you give the script power. The script doesn't have power over you.
Mhm.
And it's all about taking control and being ready to take control when the time comes and trusting that it will come,
Mhm.
and then letting go and completely letting go and just like diving head first in, and to be honest, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Fucking up, I fucked up so many times.
Mm.
In London, I chased performances and I would want it to be this and want it to be that, and I just learned to kind of go back to my roots and then also create something new. And my mum is a holistic therapist, and I'm very universe kind of spiritually orientated kind of person. And I believe that especially in live theater, it is a purely chemically energy based reaction. If you're doing it right, the audience and you kind of throw away the transactional nature of it, where they're paying for an experience and you're an actor and they know that you're faking it. But if they start to believe it, you sort of become intertwined. You're connecting these dots and you're putting two potions together and you don't know what's going to happen. But I just I just think imagination and believing in it is so important, and then not forcing that and letting it happen. It's such a double-edged sword,
Totally.
really.
I don't want to spoil anything for people who are watching this and want to go see the show, but there were some special effects that are very, very disturbing. They're terrifying, and that I genuinely that made me jump. And I know there are really technical elements to it for
Yeah.
you as well in terms of timing and where you need to be. And so I'm interested in how you personally sort of toe that line between, you know,
Yeah.
making sure that you're present in the moment while also be like, I have to hit this mark, I have to do this thing, I have to be here.
Yeah, it's such a strange thing because, tech in its name is technical, and that is something that you can feel and touch, and it could hurt you. And, the number one thing that we went forward with was being safe. And that meant understanding to the beat, to the count, how you're going to do things. And then I think as you get more power within the scene and with it, what we did was we tried to make the tech make sense. We wanted it to be a human experience where it happens organically. Like what we can say is like when the mind flare comes out, that scene, it's like there's a reason and we make the smoke have a language. It's like in liquor store when we do something with the animal, there's smoke, and that is the monster, and that's a language, and that's translation, and that's from the archaic into the human brain. And as an audience we understand then what Henry's going through. So then when the mind flayer appears, it makes sense. He wanted this to happen or he didn't. It's up to individual perception. But as an actor, I honestly just you rely on it working. You hit your mark, and then you just let it unfold, because with tech the thing is it doesn't stop. In a scene, somebody can take a pause, and they can do it a different tiny bit of different blocking, and that's interesting. With the tech it's the same thing every single night, and
But
to
I
make it interesting, it is just letting it happen, and feeling the energy that the tech brings, so then that you tap into that, and you mold it, and you take control over that, because if the tech is more interesting than me, then I've sort of failed. It's almost unexplainable because it's not normal and you don't get taught this, and it's something that I've had to just grow with, understanding that it's a tech heavy show and that becomes a part of the performance. It's like, I have, the want to fit in, and, I want to be a good kid, and I like killing, and I'm violent. And then also I have a smoke tube, you know, and making that seem natural
right.
and like it's a part of me is quite a weird, fun experience, and it's again, a lot about imagination and a lot about believing, you
Totally.
know.
Do you have any advice for other actors who are maybe feeling nervous about going into tech, for a show for
Mm.
the first time? Is there anything that you wish that you would have known going into a show like this that would have been helpful?
Yeah, I honestly just like prepare to be frustrated because with Stranger Things we had a month of tech, and that's really unheard of, which I've been told. And I think even in like a week's tech of a production, you rebuild the play, because you kind of go into tech with a preconceived notion of what you think it is, and then the tech says, "No, we are the theater, we're the building, and you mold to us." And then you're sitting there like, "No, why is this not working for me? They said it would work, etc." And then you get frustrated, and you get angry, you get sad, and just let that happen and let the process start again. Let feelings come and go, let relationships build. It's all about inhabiting the space. And I like to kind of take the time to just breathe it in. And I was really lucky that the marquee just feels almost identical to the Phoenix, that the way that it's been built and manufactured, the energy of it. But I can't guarantee that that will happen always. So I think the next time I'll do tech, I'll just be prepared to kind of take a step back, and not be overconfident and not think, you got the biggest balls in the room. It's like, hey man, have a bit of graciousness and humbleness and just, take a breath because it's so important. Anything goes wrong, take a breath. I mean, I can't really. That's good. I guess that's good advice, but I can't really speak because I definitely didn't do that. I got frustrated. I lost my mind. You know, you just do it.
You just get through it. You just
Yeah,
get through.
yeah,
I'm interested. Obviously, the IP for this show is massive. So I'm wondering how you use source material for your character prep, just in general, and then was it anything different for Henry?
yeah. Um, so normally, if I'm researching a role, I got a self tape this week, and it's like I do my thing, and I'd research the character. I try and attune that to maybe a piece of music, and I play songs that make me feel like how I think the scene kind of is. I have a perception of what the performance will be. Very strategicness to it. But with Stranger Things, it was my first time playing a character that's previously been played. And Jamie does such a fantastic job. And we deal with this psychotic, charming, enigmatic version of Henry, which is more adult and more fully formed, and he knows what he wants. And in the TV show, there's a brilliant scene where it's Jamie's monologue and he's talking to Eleven in the Rainbow Room. And I watched that, swear to God, like 50, 60 times. And because it has this amazing piece of music, it's Philip Glass's Prophecies, and I just let that sink in because I think it's such, I took what I could get, I didn't watch the full season and try to get in the nature of that. I found something that was important to me and I just let that rip, and I led with that and I tried to do it with confidence. And then I attach things that, you do the detective thing. You make, you say, how is that scene there and how in the play is he a good kid? It doesn't make sense, and you gotta draw the dots and create a little and, have fun, because it's not that serious. You could literally make up anything. You're still going to say the lines. You could
Hmm.
just make up anything. Whatever happens to make you feel good about the play. There's no regime. I think that's what I've been trying to focus on is that when I was taught the techniques, I focused way too much on it and I lost the art of creating and just throwing yourself into it. So then when I had to go at this, I did that at the start and I was very pragmatic. And then I let it go in the room and I allowed myself to be scared to say lines, even though I know I'd worked on it lots. And, you know, um, with this show, it was all about trust and research. It was a good half and half, and really putting the work in. Because I didn't want to mess up. I didn't think too hard about the Netflix Stranger Thingsness of it. I thought more just about the story. And one thing I always struggled with was playing the good kid, because that's what we open with. We open with this version of him that is so far removed from the TV show that it just seems impossible. And I saw that as a challenge that I couldn't get over, and I felt
Hmm.
weird and I felt vulnerable and I didn't like it. And over time, I just, ate that. It's like that's the trust in my creative team that they have my back, that they know what's best for the play and the show and what's best for me, and learning with them and writing them. So yeah, it's all an exercise in trust and building this character and and attaching things to him like his foundation, like the movement and making it make sense with languages because it's sci-fi and fantasy and trying to make it seem real to me because that's the only way I could do it, is if it was truth.
And
Yes.
it really does hinge so much on the power of your performance, and it really shines.
Thank you so much. It's very kind of you.
So I'm gonna do some quick hit questions to close us out. What are your dressing room essentials?
Dressing room essentials, dried lavender, maybe a diffuser. I haven't got it working yet, and a couple cans of Red Bull.
What are your current media obsessions, whether it's books, TV, films, music? What are you currently
Oh,
having on mind?
I'm really liking watching scary video game playthroughs on YouTube at the minute, and oh God, what do I like? That's kind of it. That's what I've been doing the past couple of days is watching people play scary video games.
Which video games, if I can ask?
Um, well, I can give you the creator because, or the YouTuber is called like second like two ND
Mhm.
Germa Jerma. I think he's really funny, and I remember watching him when I was like 16 and shit, and he plays a lot of like retro games and games I don't know because I like video games and lore,
Yeah,
and yeah, also yeah, I'm a
cool.
bit of a nerd man.
Is there an actor who you have met recently who, or at all, who left you starstruck and why did
Yeah.
why?
Megan Hilty, who's on Death Becomes Her. I've seen it twice. I think it's fucking bonkers. It's great. I was just joking around with a couple of people. They were like, "Nobody's selling it harder than you," and I don't know. I just love the show, and I think everybody should see it because I've met Megan and Jennifer now, and they are both such a good team and such nice people, and um, yeah. Well, another person I was starstruck by was, I mean, obviously Joe Keery from the Stranger Things TV show came, but I liked his music. Joe, as I just realized, that's how you pronounce it, not D-Joe. And I love his music, and I loved his music before he was publicly Joe Keery, Steve Harrington, and he was one of the ones I was like properly starstruck by.
Is there any sort of general advice you would give to actors who are looking to break into the business now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure whoever's looking at this or reading this or watching this has you heard it a million times. Don't be afraid to fail, but the main one is about creating vibrations. It's all about energy and what you send out there and what you perceive yourself as. The trick is to be perceived as good. And the only way to be perceived as good is if you have material or people know your name or your face. And you can create YouTube monologues. You can post stuff on Facebook. Just go on Facebook and search up Actors Group and join them all and get onto many short films. Build your CV. No matter what it is, a long CV, I think, what I was told when I was starting up, a long CV looks better than a short one. And it doesn't matter what it is. And that's it. It's about vibrations and getting work and again, fucking up and being okay with that. And just taking it a step at a time. You have a big goal, probably. And, when I was growing up, me and my dad had the three Bs. It was a big play, big part, big director. And we were like, how do you get there? We were like, okay, YouTube monologues, got my first agent. What do we do after that? Maybe go to acting university, try and perfect it. And it's steps, and it sort of is being very listy about it, in my opinion, is that if you have a plan, you're 50% of the way there. Um, so yeah, it's best not to sit around waiting on the phone, call somebody, make that happen.
Yeah. That's awesome that you got your first agent from a YouTube monologue.
Yeah, they're all privated now, but
You're
yeah,
like, I scraped those off the internet.
it was my dad's idea. He's a writer, he's a screenwriter, and he's the one who actually like pushed me into acting. And
Amazing.
it was one of the things when we didn't know what to do was we just wrote it together and shot it in our room with like 15 lamps and on a dingy camera and just posted it and literally like forced people to watch it. We were like posting, we were the most annoying person on the group. And then all of a sudden this Irish agent, Pam, came along and just swept me up. And from there it was, up and up.
Yeah. I mean, between having a holistic therapist mother and a screenwriting father, I feel like your entry into acting was very well supported in the sense that
Maybe
you're.
they knew. Maybe they knew. When he said you should do acting, I was like, no way. Absolutely not.
What convinced you? Was it just getting the agent?
Um, well, I was quite lonely in school, so I think the friendship of it, and just having something to do after school was quite intriguing. Um, Also, I didn't know how much I'd love it, you know. I met people there who were, you know, in my year group, etc., and they're still my mates to this day, and they're like, they see me posting on Instagram something, they're like, dude, do you remember when we did this tiny thing back in Sullivan, which is the
Yeah.
school I went to?
Yeah.
And yeah, I really liked it because it was removed from cliques and getting a girlfriend and, you know, fitting in and shit, and it was just acting, and it was just fun.